it's really nice to be back here in Stamford today, and actually Kathy stayed overnight in Stamford last night, and I know was one of the people honoring Artie Selkowitz earlier today when his name was put on the Citizen of the Year plaque at City Hall. It is the nature of our relationship that I get to town, and I think she's now on her way back to Hartford, but she wants to be remembered to everybody here. With respect to the video, it's so nice to have all those wonderful things said about you while you're still alive, so I really appreciate that. I do have a few things that I want to say, but I also want to recognize my good friend Congressman Jim Himes, who has been a champion himself of affordable housing professionally, as well now as a member of the Congress. To all of the participants in that video, thank you very much, but I really do need to take a moment and single out Crystal Trulia, whose long service to housing, to the elderly, to the young in our state continues to be an inspiration. And to your leader of this wonderful organization, thank you for your comments in the video. You look good in a sweater. It's good. And then to Rick Redness, who has done so much for affordable housing in our community. And it's, sometimes folks who represent multiple interests don't get all the credit that they deserve because, you like what they're doing here and you don't like what they're doing there, and it kind of gets mushed together. Rick Redness has been a stalwart in the affordable housing arena in our community, and I want to thank him for his comments and his leadership over the years on affordable housing as well. I want to say a few things, and actually didn't realize that I'd be in that video, and it actually I'm going to say to some extent some of the things that I said in that little clip, but I want to talk about them in a little bit greater detail. First of all, I want the people of Stamford and the people who support the city of Stamford to understand that we are so much further along in affordable housing than any other municipality in the state. You have no idea what the great job and the great work that the not-for-profits, as well as a renovated housing authority, Charter Oak Community, as well as different zoning requirements, how much that has done for this issue in our community. All of which is to say that we should not stop, because I firmly believe, as someone who was born and raised in the city of Stamford, that our commitment over the years to this thing is fighting me now, to housing is actually inured to the great benefit of Stamford. And the reinvention of affordable housing that has occurred over the last 10 or 12 years is really that much more remarkable, and continues to allow a contribution to be made of old units being revived and brought back to the marketplace, as well as all of the new units that have been built, as well as all of the units that we can predict will be built as a result of inclusionary zoning. But housing doesn't stand alone. And unfortunately in Connecticut, folks have taken to the habit of an issue at a time, as if an issue resolves what are our fiscal impediments or our competition impediments or our job impediments. What we really have to do, even while we're celebrating housing, is take the most holistic approach that we can in talking about this issue and the other related issues of employment and education, most particularly, as well as services to those individuals who need a helping hand and the provision of services as well as housing. I am in the midst of a campaign to change how we educate our young people. And I am drawing attention to the fact that in our state we have 30 underperforming school districts that actually educate 41% of our state's students and employ 37% of our teachers. If we don't do a better job in educating those young people, particularly in those 30 communities, we will not be competitive for job creation and job retention in the future. We can reasonably predict exceptionally high expenses in all kinds of supports required for the maintenance of individuals who have missed the education opportunity. We calculate, by the way, in the state of Connecticut, that's about a $518,000 additional cost over the life of that individual because we fail them in school. These issues are interrelated because it's very difficult to find housing on your own if you don't have a high school degree, or if that high school degree doesn't really represent anything. So this fight is very much related to the fight for recreating affordable housing in our state. You shouldn't be surprised that when I went to Hartford, I carried with me the same desires that I had on behalf of my city, but I had the opportunity to apply them on a broader canvas. So not only did we deal with a $3.6 billion deficit last year when I was handed that same services budget by the outgoing governor, and did it in such a way that we maintained support for local government. We didn't slide state expenses onto the shoulders of local government, which is what most states did last year and the year before and the year before that. We closed a gap in the ECS funding formula, $270 million gap that would have led to the layoff of many teachers and the sliding of money from other expenses into the educational system. But we went even beyond that to understand and reinforce our commitment in this state to affordable housing. Last year we dedicated $130 million in the capital program for affordable housing. Now, in 2 of the last 8 years, the state had appropriated $0, and 2 other of the last 8 years, they had appropriated $6 million. And we restored an appropriation to the $130 million mark. Now, by the way, if you think that that's outside, thank you. If you think that that's an outsized amount, let me put it in perspective for you. That's approximately, unadjusted for inflation, what Governor Bill O'Neill spent in the second to the last year that he was governor. So what we had done in this state was largely dismantle our state support for affordable housing. $130 million to be spent over the next 10 years on reshaping and rehabbing existing state housing, of which we have 17,000 units in this state, and we're one of only 4 states to have such units. We're making that commitment as well. All told, we have committed to well over $500 million over the next 10 years in the capital program for affordable housing. And we're in the process in this legislative session of moving all of the housing operations from the disparate state departments throughout state government into a single entity to be housed at DECD, the Department of Economic and Community Development, so that we actually have a deputy secretary or commissioner who will oversee our entire support of housing, renovation, development of new housing, and development of congregate housing, and that will be for the first time in Connecticut's history that we'll actually have that in our state government. So I'm more than happy to be with this audience of folks who believe, as I do, that affordable housing is how we make our communities stronger. By having people have the ability to remain in the community in which they were raised and educated, to work in the community in which they were raised and educated, to retire in the community in which they were raised and educated, is a very important concept, and one which has not been as supported in other communities as it is in ours. I have to point to all of the accomplishments of all of the entities involved in housing issues here in Stamford. And every other community, I have to point back to Stamford and say, can't we do it a little bit more like what they're doing? Can't we get for-profit developers to cooperate with not-for-profit developers to cooperate with housing authority models to make sure that we're providing the kind of product that will allow our communities to prosper in the future? This award's not for me. This award is for everyone in this room who has done something to support affordable housing creation in the city of Stamford. whether your corporation wrote out a check as a sponsor, or lends an executive to one of the many institutions in our community being supportive of affordable housing, or whether you've gifted or sold at reduced value land, or whether as a consultant you've provided at a reduced cost the services necessary to move the ball forward. Every one of you is deserving of this award. So on your behalf, I'm happy to be back in Stamford and accept it. I want you to understand that we're going to work on all of these issues in a unified way. Education, commerce, and housing go together. They can't be separated. If we're to be successful in the future, we have to march down this road together, not just in Stamford, but in all of our communities. Thank you very much for the award, and God bless you.